Welcome to Under the Lens. Come and enjoy an extraordinary, raw, and unfiltered podcast that delivers debate, discussions, and interviews about film, pop culture, and everything in between. Here is your host, film critic and journalist, Byron Lafayette.
Today I had the pleasure of sitting down with Curtis Clow. Curtis is an American indie comic book author, writer, and co-creator, best known for his books The Wild Cosmos, Beastlands, Slightly Exaggerated, and Majestic, which he self-published through his own imprint to Infinity Studios using crowdfunding. Thanks to an ever-increasing fan base, he has had 13 fully funded Kickstarter campaigns. His work on Beastlands caught the attention of distributor Dark Horse Comics, and they are releasing a trade paperback of issues 1 through 5, which will launch on June 15th in comic book stores and June 28th on Amazon and in traditional bookstores. Curtis is also a passionate gamer who's worked on the video game Deadtime Defenders, which was released on Steam by Ravenous Games. I truly hope you enjoy the following conversation as much as I did. So can you tell me a little bit of how you got into the business of writing comics? What started that love for you?
Yeah, I was my whole life I always wanted to do something creatively. I was always into writing stories and stuff. And at a young age, I was kind of drawn to comics and was trying to make them myself. But I didn't really read anything monthly. I didn't know where to get them. I would just get random issues from Borders, like a music store that would have Wolverine or just superhero stuff that I would grab. But never read anything continuously. It was just felt a pull towards them. And it wasn't until my late teens, early 20s that I just became obsessed with comics, started reading all of Image's catalog, all the creator-owned stuff. And that's when I knew that it was a place where I wanted to really channel this creativity and just focus on. And I love it. So it's just once I knew I loved comics, I knew that was going to be the thing.
Awesome. Yeah, I know how that is kind of growing up, the comics world can be convoluted and not necessarily a bad way, but it's you can't really jump into issue 30 of Batman,
Yeah. I mean, especially as a young kid and the internet wasn't as widely available back then that I could just Google, or you didn't have Comixology back then to just read issues. So I would just go into a store and just grab random issues. So it was hard.
Sure, man. Yeah, that was nostalgic. You mentioning Borders. That brings back a lot of memories. Oh man.
Well, you got the Blockbuster hat. That's just as nostalgic.
Exactly. I found this one. It was the last Blockbuster store in Oregon or something. They have a whole store and they sell everything. And I saw the hat and I was like, oh, I got to get that.
Oh, it's awesome. I got to take a trip up there before it's gone. That's cool.
I know. Yeah. It's turned into this whole tourist thing. And I want to go up there and check it out as well.
The last cool. Blockbuster. Sounds like a movie.
It does. Oh, you mentioned, as you got older, you got more into catalogs of comics and stuff. Is there any that stand out as your favorite of either issues or graphic novels or just anything?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Big fan of the writer Rick Remender. All of his stuff is just very inspirational. His writing style, and it's all high concept stuff, just what I like to write. Deadly Class, Tokyo Ghost, Black Science, Low, all of his creator-owned stuff is just awesome. Same with Kirkman. Kirkman's obviously a huge inspiration. He's so successful, one of the most successful comic writers out there. All the success with The Walking Dead, Skybound, everything he's done. Cy Spurrier is another one that I just love his work. Step by Bloody Step, Coda. There's so many great books out there.
It is very true. Yeah. It sometimes feels overwhelming, choosing which you want to do,
I know. Yeah. There's so much to read. I mean, especially as a creator, my time to read's limited. So I got to really pick and choose what I'm really into, writers I like. And then obviously it's usually sci-fi, fantasy stuff like that.
That's true. Yeah. There's a lot of great stuff, so for your newest ones coming out, Beastlands, where did that idea come from?
Yeah, it's very inspired by stuff I grew up with in the 90s, stuff like Studio Ghibli, Princess Mononoke, and Pokemon, Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh! All that stuff I loved back in the 90s, early 2000s. And but this, I always try to put something more personable and meaningful into my stories, just so it's not just meaningless entertainment. And for this, it's really about the pet and human bond and relationship. Back in 2016, my dog was hit by a car, and luckily she survived. But it was very traumatic. I had to carry her home, thought she was dying in my arms and stuff. And she pulled through, and it was just that whole experience. It was like mostly like the inspiration and heart of Beastlands, just trying to like put that into the story and the main theme of it.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad they survived.
Yeah, she's good. She's here next to me. She's living a good life now.
Oh man, I know exactly how that feels. Because I had a cat that adopted me, and I let him come in and come out. And I came home from work one day, and he was like sitting by the back door, and he was kind of moaning, and I didn't know what was wrong, and I still don't know what happened to him. I think he fell off a fence or something. And thankfully he was fine. And stuff. And he didn't go outside anymore, so
he learned his lesson. Yeah, it's good to hear he was okay though.
Yeah, so I definitely know that feeling, man. I really liked the artwork of your book. Like, it was really cool, just the way like the images popped and the way the art kind of told the story as well. With the text. So like, how did that relationship develop? With the artist. Like, was it somebody who you had in mind when you were writing, or you met along the way?
No, it's I was already working on the story, and I had the early groundwork for Beastlands, and I knew I was looking for a certain art style, and I had it in my head. And it wasn't until I came across Joe's work on, I think, Twitter, and reached out to her, asked her if she wanted to work on this, and I just knew her art style was perfect for it. It's like the perfect vibe for Beastlands, and we worked. She got on early, like before I ever even wrote like the first script or anything. I showed her the pitch and the early stuff I had, and she was brought in early. So she's my co-creator. We both co-own it and collaborator. She brings a lot of her own into this like world, and a lot of her own ideas into the pages, into the beasts and everything. So it's a very collaborative process. She's based out of South Korea, so we just work completely like through Google Docs and email and Google Drive, Dropbox, all those tools. We've never even spoken, but we've worked together since like late 2018 now. So we've made it work, and it's like a pretty smooth process. But yeah, it's crazy. The internet, you can just work with artists all over the world. Just really lucky to be living in this time.
It's very true, because before, you had to go in person and network, whether it was conventions or just, art shows or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's crazy how you can contact so many people from all over the world,
Yeah.
Like,
and then, with like Google Translate and all these other tools, like you can actually communicate people, like the language barrier isn't as much as a problem anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. There was an author I interviewed a few months ago. I think it was his graphic novel was Unicorn, I think. And it was fascinating of like the artist, I think they said he was from like South America and stuff. And they just like found him on Instagram, and like started, cool. Started contacting. And it was interesting. They were like, oh yeah, we're sending him pictures of like, kind of like, Midwest America. So he'd know like how to draw the farm, stuff.
Oh yeah.
It was cool.
Never been here. It was cool.
We talked a little bit about like the artwork and stuff, and, kind of how you collaborated a little bit. Did they change at all, like their style of artwork, for your type of story? Or was it something like that they were, creating as you were writing it? Or did they come in, with a very strong pitch of like, this is the type of work I want to do?
It was very collaborative. Like this is her first comic she's ever done, surprisingly, for how great her art is. Like, she just did some like commissioned comic pages before. That's what I saw, and that's why I reached out to her. And little did I know, like, she never like actually drew a comic. She was working in the video game industry at the time doing concept stuff. So her concepts were always super strong. I would send her ideas for characters, the beasts, what I had, and then she would always comes back with something better than I had in my head. And she just it was once she started drawing the pages and stuff, it was all pretty smooth. Like, she had the style down and how Beastlands would look.
Yeah, that's very cool. Also, congratulations on the book being, picked up by Dark Horse. That's very cool.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, no, it's awesome. It gives us a chance to hit a whole new audience. Like, we started on Kickstarter. We've done 6 or 7 Kickstarters for Beastlands over the years since like early 2019. And we even did like a theme song for Beastlands. We did a soundtrack that was on Kickstarter for like a full orchestra vinyl and stuff.
That's
so we
awesome.
Just full indie started on Kickstarter, and now there's still so many readers and such a different audience that doesn't even know what Kickstarter is or doesn't buy books on Kickstarter. So this gives us a chance to hit comic shops, bookstores, Amazon, like all the good stuff, and hopefully pick up a lot of new readers.
That's true, man. How did that all come together? For you to be picked up by them?
It was a long time in the making. They reached out like back before the pandemic. We talked for a number of months. I still had to like pitch it up the chain there, and they were super cool. And we got a full like creator owned deal, so we still totally own Beastlands. We can still launch Kickstarters if we want. We've already launched issue 6 and 7 on Kickstarter for the start of volume 2. So it's just like a perfect deal. And Dark Horse is like a really respectable publisher with a history. They've been around a while, and it just seems like a perfect home for Beastlands to come out.
That's true. Yeah. Cause they've been around a long time. I remember reading some of the like Star Wars comics from like the 90s, you know,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah,
like
they've been
Tales
out
of
for
the
a while.
Jedi, I think, or something. So what's like the process for, you know, something like Dark Horse or anything of like pitching stuff? Like, what is that process? And I would imagine being a little bit nerve wracking.
Yeah, it's definitely nerve wracking, like a lot of pressure. You want things to go good. We have an awesome editor there, and they were all super nice to us. And it's a little different process for us, I think, because we already had a few issues done. Like the normal pitching process is sometimes you're just going in with like a page doc pitch and some art, or sometimes you don't even need the art, sometimes just the pitch. But for us, we obviously had like the pitch, all the story info, and then we had like issues that they could just read, so they could really get a feel for the story and see if they like it. And I think it's less of a commitment for them. They don't have to pay our page rates or anything and pay for the art. Like it's already funded through Kickstarter, so it's less of a risk, I guess, to kind of make back their money on sales. So I guess a lot of these publishers are kind of seeing that now with Kickstarter. Kickstarter used to be kind of like looked down upon with lower quality, but over the past few years, there's like so many great books coming from Kickstarter, and all the art's already done, so it's just less of a risk for many publishers. But yeah, pitching through, just had to give them all the info, and just luckily they liked it and just pitched it up the chain.
That is very true about like Kickstarter, you know, because I remember way back in the early days of it, you know, it was kind of like it was almost like the self-publishing stigma and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that stigma is definitely gone now, where you're able to sign with like these bigger publishers. And, you know, the pandemic played a part where that's when my Kickstarters really started blowing up, because comic shops were shut down. Like that was like the only place to get books for a little bit. And then Scott Snyder using Kickstarter, Boom Studios, Keanu Reeves, and everybody like launching Kickstarters on there. It really brought a lot of eyes. Like a lot of people dislike when these big companies or big names use Kickstarter because they don't need the money. It's just like a pre-order store. But I think I like to be a glass half full, where it just brings more eyes. It makes people more aware of Kickstarter. I think it can only help us smaller indie creators.
No, it's very true, you know, because I remember when like the Kindle first came out, and there was all these like fiction authors on there, and everyone was like, oh, it's just self-publishing. But then like so many of them took off, and, you know, it's like there was ones who, you know, became, you know, completely, you know, just, you know, filthy rich off of just selling like their ebooks.
It pays to be a early adopter and to like really master one of these early technologies. That's cool. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, it's definitely it's very cool, and you know, and there's a lot of really good authors out there, but you know, because you know you've done a lot of, you know, work in like the indie comic, you know, arena and stuff. You know, what would you say has it been a different experience, you know, working with like a larger publisher like Dark Horse versus, you know, some of the more independent ones that you've done in the past?
Yeah, it's been different. You know, they're just very professional. They have a whole marketing team and publicists and everything, and the design team. Like it's stuff that I'm used to doing myself. Like I've done 15 Kickstarters. I've self-published a ton of books. I'm used to like getting my hands dirty, figuring out the page weights, all the little things. I still ship all of my Kickstarter books myself. I got boxes behind me that I'm shipping out orders for Beastlands 6 and 7. Like I touch every package. So it's just a lot off my hands, honestly, where, you know, I don't have to ship books. Like it's all distributed to comic shops and Amazon and bookstores. Like it's kind of nice, and to have the design team, like it's I'm used to having all of those extra stresses and like managing everything, almost like an image book where you're in charge of design, marketing, everything. But now this is kind of working with Dark Horse. I can kind of take a step back and let them handle the reins, something that they're good at and know how to do.
No, that's very cool. Yeah, because you know that is one of the positives of like, you know, independent is like you have full control over everything, you know, creatively and everything. But it sounds like you guys got a good deal though with Dark Horse. It sounds like
it's still fully creator owned, and I still had a lot of control. Like I'm a huge book design snob, where I wanted like a nice soft matte cover. We got that. We got spot gloss on the front, spot gloss on the back. It's just, you know, they were cool and listened to all my requests, so they've been great to work with.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's always good for a publisher to listen to the creatives, you know, because you know your audience, so you know what people want.
Totally. Yeah, definitely.
Man.
Now you said, you worked, growing up and in your early career, working on like fiction and like writing stories and stuff, would you say that there is what would you say the difference is between like writing for like a graphic novel or a comic versus writing for maybe a more traditional story of like, a novel or short story?
Yeah, writing a graphic novel or comic is just, you're like a part of a team. It's very collaborative, and it's different than like, TV or movies where it is such a small team that you can really get your intent across on a comic. But it's different than a graphic, or different than like writing just a novel, or so, because it's not just you. Like you need to work well with a team. You have usually like a line artist, maybe a colorist, maybe a letterer, and you're all working cohesively to try to tell this story. So you can't, you have to be open to, I guess, collaboration and open to others' ideas. Like I never want to just write comic scripts and have my artist just translate it directly and just, and make it seem like it's an assembly line. I want them to add to it and change it if they want it. Like just talk to me and make it collaborative. It's a lot more fun that way.
Yeah, I would guess that would be true. When you, this is just more like a creative question, but like, when you're writing, your comic scripts and stuff, do you see it, going on in your head almost like,
Definitely. Yeah. You're seeing the panels come out in your head. You're seeing like panel by panel, how you think it's going to look in action scenes. But that's the thing about being a writer when you're working with these amazing artists, once they send you art back, it's always like 10 times better than you had in your head. That's one of the most fun parts of being a writer is every week when you get that art into your inbox, and it's just like a little high when you see the amazing art and seeing your scripts translated into art. It's awesome.
And I would imagine that'd be a very cool feeling. So now, I know you worked in the video game industry, before. And so, I kind of wanted to ask you, like, what was that experience like, and what were some of the games that you worked on?
Yeah, I just worked on a few small indie games. Deadtime Defenders is on Steam. Pauldron is one still in development, and a few others that are not out yet. It's just another passion of mine. Like I love video games just as much as I love like comics, board games, card games. It's just something I loved. So being able to like work on it's just a dream come true, and it's very different than comics, where sometimes story can be like an afterthought in games, and they bring in writers later. So much it's such a that's like another thing where even for these small indie games, it's usually a bigger team. You need a programmer, an artist, and so many other things that sometimes you're brought in late to kind of just throw together some writing. Like I would love to be a part of a game early on, either an indie game studio or AAA, where I could really do like the groundwork for a good story. And sometimes games, it just depends. Every gig varies. Like sometimes it's just busy work where you're writing like naming guns and weapons and writing descriptions for weapons or character descriptions, or sometimes you're just writing more story stuff. But it'd be cool to hopefully in the future do more of that and get brought on early on to help write a cool story for a game.
That's cool. Because I guess, I never really thought about it. But it's true. Like, when you play like Borderlands or something like that, every gun has a name. And like write it,
Yeah. I mean, I worked on one game where I was literally just like naming 50 weapons, and it gets tough when you have to like try to think of something original that hasn't been done yet and just go down the list. But it can feel like busy work, very different than comic writing for sure.
Yeah, I would assume. So, so as a fun question, do you have a favorite video game of like all time or something that you?
Oh yeah, the Last of Us series. That's as a writer, like it's a very story focused game. Naughty Dog's by far my favorite developer. Like everything they make's awesome, and Last of Us Part 1 and Part 2, just amazing games.
That's very, very, very true. They completely raised the bar when it came to like story driven games. Like, blew everything away.
Yeah.
Man. So if there's somebody in our listening audience or something who is interested in like writing comics or something like that, what would you say to them as like advice or something if they're looking to break into that world or get started with it?
Yeah, the advice all the veterans give is you have to make something to break in the comics industry, and you're lucky you live in a time with Kickstarter. As a writer, it can be expensive. You have to pay for the art, you have to pay the page rates for everybody, the letter, the artist. you have to pay for printing and everything. So you're kind of lucky right now if you want to break into comics, because just to make something, you have Kickstarter. And I would say start small, start writing smaller scripts, just 1 page, 5 page, 10 pages, get practice. Like you don't even ever have to pay for the art for the scripts. That's just practice for yourself. It's free, and you're going to get better with every script. Your biggest thing is just getting better at your craft, so people will like want to buy your stuff. Hire editors, like they're not that expensive. You can hire comic editors to then critique your scripts and see what you're doing wrong, see what you're doing right. Bring in editors like earlier on for like more of the story outlines and stuff to just make sure your like overall story process is good and the story structure. And then start small with Kickstarter too. Like launch a one shot on Kickstarter or like a mini series. Don't try to make something that's like a 20 issue or 80 issue series. It's not realistic as a new creator. Everybody wants to do that, but just don't. Like you're going to learn the hard way. Like start with a 3 issue series or something small that's like attainable as a new creator. And it's a grind, but if you launch a small Kickstarter for like a few thousand, like maybe $2,000 to $5,000 as your goal, like it's very attainable for your first Kickstarter. And if you bring on some awesome artists, like you're gonna have to pay for like your own preview for like the line art for at least like 5 to 10 pages. Like you have to put some skin in the game and pay some money out of your own pocket to get this going. But you could get rewarded, and then if your Kickstarter is successful, then you'll have money to make the rest of the comic.
That was great advice. With Beastlands, is there like a theme or a message that you would like, as somebody's reading through it or after they finish it, that you would like them to step away from the work with?
Yeah, like I said, it's very much about the pet and human bond. That's like a major theme through it, and it's also one of the main messages of the story is appreciating what you have before it's too late. You see like the way the main character treats his keeper and friends and kind of splits everyone up, and he kind of doesn't appreciate everybody till it's too late. So it's one of the main messages. Yeah.
Very cool. So where can people find you and find your work?
Yeah, I'm at Curtis Clow on pretty much all those social platforms: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook page, and then my portfolio site, curtisclow.com, is all of my contact info, and my company site is toinfinitystudios.com. Working on getting a shop up there and stuff. And then, Beastlands will be out. It got delayed a little bit, shipping delays with COVID, but I think it's now it's June 29th at comic shops, and Amazon and bookstores is now July 12th.
Very cool. Well, I'll definitely be picking one up at my local comic shop. So
it's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on board and talking with me. It was very fun, and I always love digging down and exploring authors and their work.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.